Alright, so here's part 2 of our tutorial. So far we have created a couple objects. We have a room in here, and we can move up and down. We can shoot some objects. We have a boss that's not doing anything. We don't have any collision detection at all, but let's now pick it up from there. So let's get out of this. The next thing that we want to do is create some enemies, some of the things that the boss is going to kind of shoot out at us. And so let's create a bunch more objects here. Simple objects, because we already have all the sprites in play. So let's create an object. And let's go ahead and say obj object, and let's say we call this the monster. These are the things that are going to come at us, and if we get hit by them, then we're going to lose health. So let's click on sprite, and the sprite is going to be the little monster. And if we think about what we need to do here, think about the events. When we create this monster, right? Let's create an event for when it's created. We're going to start moving in a direction. So in this case, we're just going to move to the left because our boss is going to be shooting these things from the right side of the screen. So we're going to say, let's move to the left. And we can maybe alter the direction a little bit. So we can go left, or we can go northwest or southwest. So we can create any one of those. And let's make the speed, for now, let's just say the speed is 8. We're going to say OK on that. Right? Now, a couple other things. When is this object going to die? Or when are we going to delete this instance? Well, first of all, if it exits the room, let's say it goes all the way to the left and it goes off the screen, then we're going to want to get rid of it, right? So we did that before. We're going to create an event for other, and we're going to say outside of the room. If the monster gets outside of the room, then let's just destroy the instance. So we're going to click on this and just destroy the instance. And we'll say OK. The other thing is, when we create this object, it could move like up and to the left, down and to the left, sort of these diagonals, that if it hits a boundary, okay, if it intersects a boundary, we want to reverse the vertical direction, kind of like what we did before. So let's go ahead and say add an event, and we're going to go back to other and say, what if it intersects a boundary? If it intersects a boundary, we're going to simply reverse the vertical direction. We're going to basically keep the x value, the x momentum, just going to the left. But we're going to reverse the vertical. So we're going to use this little bar here and say reverse vertical and say OK on that. All right, so we have create, we have outside room, we have intersect boundary. The other thing is, what are we going to do if it gets hit by a fireball, right? That's the other way that this thing is going to die. So we can create a collision event. So we're going to go ahead and click on add event, and we're going to do a collision with the fireball. So we're going to do that. Now, if the fireball hits this monster, that in our game, that's like a good thing, right? We are going to add to the score. So I'm going to go to the score here. And remember, all these pre-built variables, these are global variables, meaning any object that we create, if we change any of these variables, they're all accessing the exact same variable. They're global. Every object can access this. And so this is an okay thing to use, the score. We're going to set the score because this is like our main score for the whole program. This is our main score for this main character. We'll show a kind of variation of local variables, or times when we don't want to use a global variable, towards the end of this little project. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the score. So if we get hit by a fireball, we're going to set the score. Here we can say, let's say we want to add like 10 points. Let's make our score go up by 10. This case, we want to click on relative because we want to add to the existing score. So if we left it like this, it would just keep setting the score. It'd be like score equals 10. And then if I got another monster, it would just set the score equal to 10 again. If we click on relative, it'll just add 10 to the existing score. So it'll be more like score equals score plus 10. So again, kind of a weird way. I would prefer, or am used to, just typing out that code. But in this case with drag and drop, that's how it works, right? So we click on relative and make that 10. That's going to add 10 to our score. Now also, when the fireball hits the monster, okay, we're going to destroy. Actually, we're going to destroy two things. Right? We want to destroy the monster, so we're going to go to destroy instance. We're going to drag that over here. And the first thing we want to do is just destroy the instance of self. Right? We're going to destroy, and in this case, since we're inside defining the monster object, that will just destroy the current monster instance that collides with the fireball. So if I do this, it'll go ahead and create or get rid of the monster. So I'm going to say OK. Now we can also opt to destroy the fireball as well. Probably want to destroy the fireball unless you want that fireball to like just keep blazing through and just taking everything out in its path, right? So I'm going to opt to destroy the fireball as well. So what we do here is we're going to go ahead and drag another destroy instance over to our thing. But in this case, we're going to select the other object. Right, so we're going to apply, you can see what it says here, it's going to apply the action to the other object, the object that is colliding with a monster. So in this case, other really just means whatever fireball instance that just hit the monster. So again, the fireball hits the monster, it's going to destroy the monster, and then it's also going to destroy the fireball, because we're going to select other here, and so we're going to have two destroy instances here. All right, so that should be it for this little monster. Now, if we play this, nothing's going to happen because we haven't created any monsters in our code yet. What we want to do is we want to have the boss. We want to have this, if we go back to boss, so go back to boss. If we go back to boss, we want the boss to sort of shoot out these monsters. So if we go back there, what we want to do is let's create an event inside of the boss, right? And we basically want the boss to shoot out these monsters, you know, as the program is running. So we're actually gonna click add event, and we're gonna go to the step function. Remember, the step function or the step event is basically being triggered like over and over and over and over again. Basically every step of our program, and there might be 30 steps per second. So this event could be, it's kind of like an infinite loop, right? This step event is being called like 30 times per second, or whatever speed we put of our room. It could be more than that. So it's constantly being called in there. And what we're going to do in there is this is where we're going to create instances of that monster. So let's get started with that. What I'm going to do is we're going to say, let's start with this. Let's create an instance. Create an instance of the monster. So we're going to say create an instance of one of these bad guys. And again, the same thing happens with this monster. We want to select this as relative, so it's going to be relative to the boss. We don't want to say at 0, 0, because then At the top left corner, you're going to see these bad guys, and you won't even know what's going on because it won't actually travel to the left, or it'll go off the screen. So we're going to say OK on that. Right? Now, if I said OK right now, which we can test this, this is going to be creating a lot of monsters if you can kind of just check out this code. If the step function is being called all the time, like 30 times a second, then if I play this, we're going to have a ton of monsters just kind of spewing out of the boss. So if I run this game, better get ready because there's probably going to be a lot of monsters here. And you can see these monsters are just coming and we're just creating a ton of monsters, 30 per second it looks like, or close to that. So we don't want this because now we're just spamming these objects, and we're just this would be an impossible game. We'd be dead in a matter of seconds. So how do we slow this down, right? So what we're going to do, one way we can do this, let's go back to the boss object, go back to our step function. Let's say we only want to create a monster object if, and we're going to use a random number. So one way to do this is if we go to Control and we go to Test Chance. And they have a little dice roll here because it's kind of like what it's doing. What we're going to do is we're going to drag in one of these Test Chance things here, or these little icons, and I'm going to put it above this. Now the Test Chance, we basically think of it as a an X number sided die, right? So I'm going to say, what if we have 1 out of like 25? 1 out of 25. We're going to try that. We're going to say like 25 numbers. And so it says, with chance 1 out of 25, perform next. And what we'll do is we're going to create this start and end block right here. Now, it's important that this is indented right underneath this test above it. So it says, with chance 1 out of 25, perform next, and then it'll create the monster only if this is true. So this is kind of like an if statement. It's saying, if this is true, then create a monster. And again, it doesn't really give us that much specifics here. It's very kind of abstract. It just says, essentially what's happening behind the scenes here is we're going to create a random number, 1 to 25. And let's assume that the random number that we're looking for is like number 10. So let's say we have a 25-sided die, and we're going to keep rolling this thing until we get the number 10. And if we get the number 10, or a 1 out of 25 chance, then we'll create a monster. Otherwise, we won't do anything. It'll just go beyond that. Now remember that this step thing is being called like 30 times a second. So when I say 1 out of 25, I'm sort of expecting there to be like one monster coming out of here, like on average like 1 for every second. Okay, so this is just a guess at first, but this is an easy way to make our game harder or easier based on this sort of randomization that we have in the step event. So now let's test that one more time. Right? Let's say OK, and now let's see if we get spammed with monsters. So we run it, and nothing's happening here, but you can see once in a while these things come out, and I can shoot and I can eliminate these players. It seems pretty easy right now, right? There's not much to this, right? But it's doing exactly what I want it to do, and my score should be increasing. So I do want to kind of keep track of that score. I have to figure out a way to visualize the score, but it's doing what I sort of expect it to do. Now, if one of the monsters hits me, nothing really happens, so I do have to program that in there as well. Let's go ahead and do that right away. So let's add a few things to this monster. Number one, if we go back to, let's go back to monster, and Now, if you noticed in the, there are some sounds that were already loaded into this project. If we go to our monster and fireball, what we should do here is I want to play that sound too. So just make it a little bit nicer. If we go to that object fireball, we're going to make the score go up 10, but then we want to play a sound. So how do we play sounds? If we go to right here under main 1, there is a little sounds tab and we can play a sound. So we're going to play a sound after we increase our score. We'll say, what sound do you want to play? And we're going to select the monster sound, right? And we're going to say okay. So that's one thing. Now, if we go back to the dragon, let's go back to the dragon, and we want to create some sort of collision with the monster, right? So we're going to go ahead and hit add event, and let's say collision, and we're going to do monster. So if we get hit by a monster, we got to decide what do we want to do, right? Is the game over? Are we just going to subtract some from the score, or are we going to have a health or something like that? We can do all of that kind of stuff. I think what I want to do here is let's take away from health, right? Let's do health. So let's go to score, and you can see here that we already have a global variable score that we're already using. Let's use this global variable health, and we're going to set the health, and we want to take away from the health. So I'm going to say like negative, let's say negative 10 for now, and we're going to say relative. So we're going to say okay, because we want that to subtract from the health. Now keep in mind we haven't set the initial health to, like, let's say 100 or something like that when the game starts. So we're going to want to do that as well. So let's say okay on that. So inside Dragon, let's add an event. Click on add event, and we used this before, but let's do draw GUI. And inside here we're going to draw or put to the screen our scores and our health. So inside here you can click on score, and we're going to draw the health. So we're going to click on this draw health, which is actually going to draw, it's kind of cool, it's going to draw a health bar above our main character. So we're going to say, all right, what's our X and Y, and our, so X1, Y1, and our X2, Y2. Basically that represents, if you think about a health bar, it's going to be like this rectangle. The top left of the rectangle is going to be at coordinates X1, Y1. The bottom right of the health bar or rectangle that it's going to draw is going to be at X2, Y2. And so what we're going to do here is, let's just say, so like X1, Y1, we're going to keep at like 0, 0. And X2, and we're just going to have to test this out a little bit. X2, let's say, is 100, and Y2 is, let's just say it goes like by 10, like 10 there. And I want to make this relative. This is going to be relative because I want this bar to be basically following along my main character. So I'm going to say OK on this. I also want to draw, I forgot that we have a score here as well. So our score is going to increase or decrease. So let's go ahead and draw the score as well. We're going to draw the score, and this time we're going to keep it up at the top left of the screen, kind of like what we did in that previous tutorial. And we're going to say score equals, so and so. And let's just leave it like that. All right. What else do we need before we do our next test? Let's add a controller. Now we haven't created a controller for our cave room yet. So let's say okay on this. We're going to create another object. Create object, and we want a controller for our main room. So we're going to say obj controller, or let's say cave controller. So we don't need a sprite for this, of course. And this can be just like an object that kind of sets things in motion, that we can put different kind of room conditions on, and we can set variables and stuff like that. So what we'll do is let's definitely do a create event for this controller. And in the create event, let's set our global variables. So let's go to score here. We're going to set the score to 0, and we're not going to do relative. Okay, we want it to actually set to 0 when we go into that room, when it starts. We're going to set our health right here. Let's set the health to 100. And also, I forgot that there is a theme song. There's a little theme song that we're going to start up when we do this. So we're going to play a sound, and we're going to play the theme song for this level, and we're going to say OK there. And eventually we need to start talking about our end game. Like, when are we going to go to the next level, right? How do we get to the next level? That kind of thing. So eventually, we do want to add a step event. Let's go to add event. We're going to add a step event, and we're going to want to be checking to see if our score is at a certain level. So we could at least do this. Let's go to our control. This is like where all our if statements are and whatnot. We're going to say if the score, let's say if the score is larger than some number, then we're going to go to the next room. So we can say, we can test a variable right here. We could actually use this, or we could go back to the score tab, because there's already a button here that we can use for that. So here's the score. We're going to test the score. We're going to say if the score is, let's say larger than like 200, or I don't know, 250. Then what we'll do is, and I always like to put these little start and end blocks here. If you've coded before, it just kind of like sets apart our if statement, and then we can put multiple statements into this little block of code. If that's true, and of course there's only one thing we're going to do here, but we're just going to go to the next room. Let's just say go to your rooms, so main 1, and we're just going to go to the next one. So that's assuming that we have a next level, which we don't right now. So if we get to that point in time, it's going to probably cause an error. Okay, and then we also want to test. So go back to our score tab right here. We also want to test the health. So let's say down here, let's say if the health is, let's say, smaller than 0, or we can go equal to. We could just try equal to. Say if it's equal to 0, and then we can maybe restart the game, or we could go to the end screen. I don't even know if we have an end screen in here yet. That's okay. So let's go ahead and say, let's just restart the game. So if we go to main 1 and we click on, where are we at? This might be main 2. Yeah, main 2, we'll just restart the level, or restart the game. So why don't we just do that? So if health is below 0, we'll restart the game. If the score is above 250 for the first level, or cave, then we will go to the next level. And we're going to say OK on that. Now we have to add, remember, we always have to add that controller to the actual room. So let's go into cave here and make sure that we have our controller object selected right here, which for me, it was already selected. And I'm going to click, I usually put my controllers just on the top right. These are like my invisible objects there. So I added the controller up there. And that should run right when the first level starts. So we're going to say, okay. Let's give this a try. We have not tested this program in quite a while, so let's give it a try and see where we're at here. So we run it. Now, a couple things. I can hear the music here in my score. Ooh, my health is already like below. My health bar already went down. You can see that when you kill these monsters, my score is going up. Now remember, when it gets to 250, it's going to try to go to the next level, and it's going to cause an error, because we don't have a next level yet. So once I hit this next one, there we go. It causes an error, and that's kind of what it was supposed to do. A couple things happened there, though, that we need to fix. Number one is our health went down very, very quickly. So if we go back to your dragon, your main character, there's a couple things that we forgot to do, and that is when the dragon or when a monster hits the dragon, which we don't want to have happen, your health goes down by 10. But we want to destroy the object. We want to destroy the dragon there, and that's why that when the monster was hitting my main character, it just kind of like automatically went to 0 because it was just going like boom, 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 boom. It wasn't actually destroying that monster. So somewhere in main 1, let's go ahead and destroy the instance. And in this case, we don't want to destroy the dragon. We want to destroy the other. The thing that's colliding with the dragon, which is the monster. So we're going to say other there. We're going to say okay. And what else? Now I did notice too that the game didn't seem to start over. When I went to the controller here, if health is equal to 0, it was going to restart the game. And it didn't seem to restart the game. So what's possible that happened there is the health just went down so quickly that it just went right past 0 and it went to negative. And this might have just kind of missed it, possibly. So that's why we might want to just say, let's change this. We're going to edit this to just create it smaller than, and we can just say smaller than 1. So that if it happens to go to 0 and we don't quite test it, if it goes to -1 or -2, we'll still then catch it once, if we miss it the first time. So let's change that to smaller than 1, and let's say okay there. And let's run this again. So this is just a good example of incremental testing. We want to try something, we want to test it again. You can see that our health is going down, and if it goes down to 0, I think it should restart the game. And it did, right? Now our game is restarted. And of course, it's kind of an easy solution there. You can make that whatever you want. You can also see that the health bar is not the best place here. I think I want to change kind of where that health bar is going to be. But this still works, right? I can still shoot. Once I get to 250, it's going to go to the next level, which we can create later, not right now. Right? Alright, so we got something working. Let's go back to Dragon, and I want to fix the health bar a little bit because it was a little bit too thick and not quite centered on top of our main character. So if we go to Draw GUI, go to Draw Health Bar, let's alter this a little bit. So remember, the X1 Y1 is where we start drawing the top left triangle of the bar. So I want it to be more to the right. So I'm going to offset this by going to the right. I'm going to try 30. And then the height of the rectangle is going to be the difference of Y1 and Y2. I don't want it to be 10. Let's say I make it like 3, 0 to 3. And we'll say OK on that. So that should fix the bar there. And I think this is going to wrap up just like part 2. So part 1, so you can see we have a health bar here. So we have that going for us. We have our health going down, which is indicated by the health bar, which when we get to the end, it restarts the game, and we also have our score going up as well. Alright, so that's it for part 2. Let's end this one, and we'll see you in part 3.